Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dorottya Láng and Julius, who were, of course, supposed to be with us tomorrow afternoon. We're recording this on Sunday afternoon, and they were supposed to be with us tomorrow for a concert in the Holywell Music Room. So, hello, Dorottya. Hi, Julius.
Hello, Sholto.
Hello. Dorottya, where are you, and how are you doing?
So I'm in Budapest, and I'm still healthy. No fever and no cough, no test either, but I feel okay. So all good here.
Very
Thanks.
Good. And are you looking at a long stretch there, the diary emptied for some time ahead of you?
Well, to be honest now, yes, but there's always something to learn, something to do, something to spend the time with. So it's not really totally quiet.
And Julius, where are you?
I'm in Hertfordshire, about an hour outside London, and I'm self-isolating with my wife Belinda and our two grown-up daughters, and we have had coronavirus in the house. Kitty, our eldest daughter, picked it up from a friend, and Belinda got it next, and then Lydia. I seem to have survived so far. They've survived, importantly. It's been like a nasty dose of flu, with a few side issues like losing a sense of smell, which I've also lost. I've completely lost my sense of smell. So whether that means I've also got it and just had very mild symptoms, who knows? Until they start testing people in numbers, we'll never know, I'm afraid. But I feel fine. I'm very pleased.
Losing your sense of smell must be a blow at the moment, because I gather that you've been filling the time as becoming a candidate for MasterChef, and you were just saying that the tatin has just come out of the oven, but you're not going to be able to enjoy it from the sound of it.
Well, I can't smell it, but I am hoping I can still taste it. And anyway, the pleasure in cooking is making. I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I'm in any way a candidate for MasterChef or even a competent chef, but I'm an occasional cook who enjoys cooking when I have the time. And now I can tell you, I've got acres of time, so I think I might be cooking quite a lot more.
Yeah, that's definitely the case in this household in Oxford, which is where I am. That's definitely the case here as well. So we're not able to host our Spring Song Festival, as you know, and we're really sorry not to be seeing you. But we're doing this kind of virtual social DistanSong over the course of this week, very impromptu. And I'm trying to put as much up online, as much material of people as I can. And you've already sent me links to two fantastic YouTube videos, which are going to appear beneath this on our event page tomorrow. And I was quite surprised to see you send me Auf dem Strom, the Schubert song. I don't really think of that as a mezzo song, but is that something you do often, Dorottya, or?
No, not true. That was the only one time that we did it in Vienna with Julius and with this fantastic cello player, Narek Haknazarian. And it was a great experience to do this song. We did it in a special key. I don't remember the key anymore, but
C major. C major.
Yeah, C major, exactly. And so it was very comfortable, and yeah, it was a great feeling to sing it with two amazing musicians of our times.
Are you doing it in concert anytime? Well, obviously not anytime soon, but were there or are there plans at some point to perform it together?
With Julius.
I guess so.
Or just wherever.
I hope there will be. Yeah, it's one of those pieces. It's one of those songs that can't really take place without the third musician, whether that musician's a cellist or a horn player. And if you're doing it in the low key of C major, then it does need to be a cellist. But it works wonderfully. It works wonderfully. It's one of his late songs, one of the last things he wrote in 1828. I've got tremendous affection for it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And listening again before we sent the clip to the performance we gave in Vienna, I thought how wonderfully it works with the mezzo voice. And I think C major is a great fit. So I recommend it to anybody.
Well, I'm sure people will be clicking on it below immediately. And the other song, of course, Brahms' Unbewegte Laue Luft, which I think, Dora, you sang for us back in 2017, perhaps, was it? I'm pretty sure. Did you not sing that for us?
I don't remember that.
Yes, we did.
I don't remember. Sorry.
Really. I thought you did.
I do remember. I remember we did the whole of that Brahms set.
That's right.
Which Unbewegte is the last song.
I thought we did it only in Vienna, but then we did it in Oxford too. Sorry, I didn't remember. But it's one of my favorite songs, of course. I will never forget when I heard it when I did the Wigmore Hall competition, and I heard it there first time in my life. And I don't remember who sang it, but it was already like touching my heart back then. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sending those through. And I just thought maybe we're also, as you know, putting together a kind of playlist for people to listen to recordings that you've recommended of the program that they would have been hearing tomorrow night. Could you maybe tell people a bit about how you put that program together? There are various sort of threads going through it, and I have to say some music, particularly the Leha in there, that I don't know at all.
Well, we started, I mean, one of the themes running through it, to answer first, is the Mignon Lieder, Goethe's Mignon Lieder, set first of all by Schumann, which was going to start the program in the first half, and then the same poems, exactly the same poems, set by Hugo Wolf, only about 40 years later. The same poems. So I like doing that. It's a nice mirror effect. You get a chance to hear the poems again, and you hear two different creative geniuses interpreting them. So that was one of the linchpins of the program, was starting with the Schumann Mignon, starting the second half with the Wolf Mignon.
And then the Dvorak.
Sorry, and for me it's a very inspiring song. Like, I don't know, how is it called? Like, not cycle, but it's a group of songs. It was my very first song recital that I did. It was only with Mignon songs, and I did all the Schubert, the Schumann, and the Wolf back in Vienna, still when I was a student, and that's how my whole song singing started. That these were the first songs that I've ever sung. And then I heard all this, like this amazing recording with Julius and with Lauren Hunt, and I will never forget that. That was the very first songs that I've ever heard. Yeah.
Julius's ears are burning.
My ears are burning, but they are burning. But I want to tell you a story about that recording, because it was a Wigmore Hall concert that Lorraine Hunt was giving, and I was thrilled to get the invitation to be on that occasion. I had never met her, and we had never done a concert together before, and so it was quite a tall order that this concert was taking place at the Wigmore Hall, which is, of course, one of the beacons of Lieder in the world. This is at least 20 years ago, probably more like 25 years ago. And I met Lorraine Hunt, and I liked her, but she was not an easy person socially. But I remember the meetings went well, the rehearsals went well, and then we did the concert. And at one point or other, Radio 3 said they wanted to record the concert, and they did record it. And I could remember that the concert was definitely a highlight of my year. I think she's one of the greatest song singers I have ever worked with, and I was blown over by her intensity. And then after that, very tragically, not that, she became with the cancer that eventually killed her, and we didn't have another chance to work together. But shortly after she died, Wigmore Hall came and said that we would like to release the Radio 3 broadcast that you gave with Lorraine Hunt in our new Wigmore Live series, because that stage, the idea of recordings being issued from Wigmore Live concerts was a new one. And I said, fine, that's fine with me, but I would, I don't think I ever heard the broadcast, and I would like to at least hear the broadcast, because it just went out live. There was no editing of any sort, and I just hope I didn't mess up somewhere, as sometimes happens in a live concert. It goes out in a recording, then then people somehow expect you to get the right notes. You know, it would be embarrassing if I had a horrible big splash somewhere and that was going to go out on the recording. So the message came back from Wigmore Hall saying, yes, fine, no problem. We'll send you the tapes. We'll send it, it's fine. And about a month or two later, I thought, I wasn't thinking about it. I moved on to other things. A month or two later, I got a little parcel in the post, and it was the Wigmore CD. And I rang up my agent and I said, but they've issued it as a CD, but they never sent me anything to listen to. So my agent immediately went back to the Wigmore Hall and said, but you said you weren't going to issue this CD until Julius had a chance to hear it. And they said, oh my goodness, we made a mistake. I'm so sorry that he didn't get it. We've messed up completely. Well, look, if he listens to it and he doesn't like it, then okay, we won't release it. We won't, you know, that was just that was the first one, but we'll bin it. We've made a mistake. I'm so sorry. We should have sent it to him, you know. So then I got out the CD instead of the, you know, trial tape. I got out a CD and I sat down and I listened to this live concert from now a few years back, probably 5 years before. And of course, it's not in any way faultless, but it has such a searing, I mean, she is such an amazing artist, and she had such searing intensity at that stage in her life, perhaps particularly because I think she then already knew that she was carrying the cancer. And I was very moved actually listening to it because of that intensity she had. And I thought, well, warts and all, it can go out. And I'm very glad I did, because it's become one of the recordings that I'm most proud of over the years. And proud actually that it's completely live, that it just went out without any edits at all. So that's the story.
A single meeting. There can't be many records such as that.
No.
One single meeting, one single take.
And you know, when that's right. And when somebody comes in, Lorraine lived in, she was living in Canada actually then, and she came over just for that concert, or at least if she came over for other things, this was the first thing. And I'm sure we didn't have more than 2 rehearsals. Just 1 rehearsal, 2 rehearsals, then the concert. So,
and Dory,
I'm still very proud of
it. Yes?
Dory, the end of the program would have been the Fauré La Bonne Chanson.
Exactly.
Is this a regular piece in your rep? Is this something you do a lot?
I did just once with little chamber orchestra, and it was still in Hamburg. We did it in the Air Philharmonie in the little hall, and we were working on it a long time, and so I got to know the piece very well. And I think it's a very important thing to sing it. I wanted to try it. How does it feel with the piano? Because I never had the chance to try it. And I thought, great, so this is a great opportunity to try. And yeah, that's why I picked it. But of course, I love all the poems. This is so beautiful, and I think Fauré felt it so well, how to put it into music. So that's why I picked it.
And if I remember rightly, Fauré, he made, didn't he, the arrangement with string quartet as well? But actually, he definitely thought that the piano original was the version, and I don't think he had much affection for his own arrangement beyond that, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. That's right. That's correct. Yeah. In fact, Dory said to me when she said she wanted to sing it, she said, "Oh, I don't know what it'll be like with just with the piano, but I'm not sure." She said, "I'm not sure I want to do it just with piano." And I said, "Dory," I said, "Dory, it was originally written with the piano, and in fact, Fauré made the arrangement for a concert at the Wigmore Hall. He made the arrangement, and he expressed dissatisfaction with the arrangement. And of course, now it's much better known in the arrangement, but originally it was with piano alone, and that was his preferred version. So then Dory said, "Okay, all right, we can do it."
Of course, everything is much more beautiful with the piano, Julius.
It all depends on how it's played, doesn't it? And any particular recordings you'll be pointing us towards?
well, I love, of course, Gérard Souzet. I never know how to pronounce his name, but definitely I think he's so clear and just, it's like a ticking clock is so amazing. It's very hard to get close to. That's why, of course, because me as a Hungarian singer, to get close to such a music is it's a hard work. And I think that he just opens his mouth and he has it in his blood, so he doesn't have to do anything. It's so simple and so tells so much. And it's interesting. I always try to listen to recordings with the other sex, that I don't like listening to female singers. I like always to listen to with male singers, because then I don't pick up too much.
Yeah, but it's interesting what you said. It's like a ticking clock, because I always think with Fauré that he's the only composer I know. I don't know if you agree with me, Sholto, on this, but he's the only composer I know where you can actually put the metronome on and leave it on all the way through the song, and it completely works and it sounds completely musical.
Yeah.
And I always think this is a real thing of Fauré, that he has this sort of ticking clock going on, almost metronomic clock going on all the time, despite the fact that the music is incredibly romantic, incredibly deeply felt. And this applies to not only his later music like La Bonne Chanson, but to the early songs too. And I think that's what people refer to when they talk about the style in a French song. Somehow with Fauré, you have to sort of step back emotionally and let it just tick along. Have you found that, Sholto?
I absolutely agree. But I also think in a way that presents the kind of greatest challenge of all, doesn't it? Because then everything you do with it has to come from somewhere else, because there's no sentimentality, there's no rubato. I remember when I was at Guildhall, Graham Johnson did one of his complete songs projects, and when I was there, was fortunate enough to do the complete Fauré songs. Sort of, I mean, not that I was playing them all. Lots of us in our year were playing them under Graham's supervision. And he said exactly that. You'd go for a coaching, and pretty much all he would do would put the metronome on at Fauré's marking, put it on the piano, and you would play it through. And it was a real sort of revelation that it could work like that. But the only thing that he couldn't then, or he didn't have time, rather, in preparing all these songs to communicate to everybody, was how he then made the songs spring off the page. And I do remember thinking there were a lot of slightly dull performances while everybody just slavishly followed the metronome, and that was their sort of concern. And we weren't all thinking about how we could possibly coax all these different colors and other nuances. It's interesting when you take
of course you take that's the great challenge is finding all those colors, but without giving yourself the rubato. But maybe even with the metronome on, there is some sort of very subtle rubato involved. It's just not in the usual romantic tradition. So, but I do adore his music more and more. The older I get, the more I love. I think
he's also unusual in. I feel like his metronome markings are always absolutely spot on as well when he gives them, which is not often the case for composers, is it?
Well, sometimes I find them rather fast. Sometimes, but surprisingly fast. For instance, La Lune Blanche, the third song in La Bonne Chanson. It's amazing. If you put it on that metronome mark, if you play it at the metronome mark he wrote it at, it is very, I always think, surprisingly fast. When you think it's just a still moonlight, but actually, if you put it on at the metronome mark, which is something like 78, it's so I often think that.
Yes.
But generally, I find that his metronome markings are pretty consistent.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
I don't know whether you've done yet. I didn't ask you to for this, but Julius, I don't know whether you've yet done this recording process that a lot of people are doing, of recording the piano part, sending it off for your singer to then listen to on headphones and sing through. And I know that the experience I've had, and quite a few other people have had, is that when you haven't actually got the sound of the voice in the room with you, you suddenly find that very unconsciously you're too fast and just slightly everything kind of flows in a slightly different way, even though you're hearing the voice and the and hearing the text in your head and following it through. You somehow, when there's not, and you don't even notice the change then in reality when you work with a singer. But I'm sure there's a study day in that after all this is over. I feel like
a new skill we're all going to develop, isn't it?
Exactly.
Sort of
We're probably all going to go the other way and end up being very, very slow. But I sometimes wonder with the composers whether they hear metronome marks in their head, and then are able, in their head, it can seem quite a lot faster while still seeming to have the kind of atmosphere that they're
absolutely.
Right.
In fact, I've got a story again, which you can decide to use or not. But I learned a major. I learned a major cycle Hans van der Henze wrote for me and Ian Bostridge, which was a 50-minute long cycle, 6 arabischen Lieder, and I was struggling. It's a massive. I don't know if you've played it, Sholto. I recommend it, but it is an absolutely massive learn. It is one of the hardest things I've ever had to learn and play. And the first song particularly, I was struggling with, because the tempo was minimum equals 84. And I just can't get it to this sort of tempo. I mean, I'm not even close. So he came to the house, Henze, for a run through. Again, this is 25 years ago. And I'd done my best, but I said to him, it's very nice to meet him and everything. I gave him a cup of coffee and everything. He was a very genial, very nice man, charming man. And he said, and I said, but I have to admit, Mr. Henze, that I don't know how to play this first line. I just don't think it's possible, this one, the first one to play. And he wasn't at all genial after that. He said, what do you mean it's not possible to play? So I said, well, I just can't get all the notes in. And he said, well, I've written a piano concerto and nobody complained about that. So I felt suitably admonished, by the famous composer. And then we sat down and I braced myself. I breathed in, looked at EF, and after about 15 seconds, he went, stop, it's much too fast. But we said, but Mr. Henze, it says there minimum equals 84. He said, don't take any notice of the metronome marks, it's much too fast. And he then sang it da 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 at about at least a third slower, and I could play it. So
I'm sure.
I'm not sure we should ever trust. We should never trust a composer's metronome marks.
Yeah. Well, all being well, I think we can say here, all being well, I'm hoping that you and Ian are going to be performing some of those songs for us come October. If we're all back up and running by then.
With pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're still alive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now we should probably start to wrap this up, not least because I'll be very, very surprised if my 4-year-old boy doesn't come running in any minute now. He's been so far amazingly quiet in the other room. But what else? Just to finish, what else are you going to be doing to pass the time in the coming months? And any tips on this self-isolation for people? Musical tips, I guess.
Well, I have a little problem because I just live in a normal block of flats, and I just feel so embarrassed to sing here because everybody is at home, all my neighbors, all the time. So I feel embarrassed to sing, though they are very nice and they always tell me, oh, it's so beautiful and everything, but I just feel so ashamed and bad that maybe they have to.
I think you should. You're one of the most beautiful voices God gave anybody, and they will be extremely lucky to hear you singing. And you should remember that.
Yeah, but it's still shouting, Julius. It's so loud, so it's like I don't know. You're
not going to be doing
have
it
a
for
bucket
5 hours.
What?
You should open the window and have a bucket out the window. People should be paying to hear it.
Exactly.
Do you take contact?
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my problem here. I don't know. Julius can play as much as he wants to because.
Yes. Well, I know here I can play as much as I want. Yes, which is in some ways something very nice about that. But I'm finding it difficult. I mean, I've spent my whole life doing concerts, rehearsals, and traveling and teaching, and none of those things can I do now. And you don't just, I can just straight away adapt, and I'm happy sitting at home, practicing and thinking and reading. I hope I'll get into it, used to it, and it will be fine if one knew how long it was going on for. But the difficulty is that none of us know when this is going to end. So for me, it's a sort of learning curve, how to change my patterns of behavior, my patterns of thinking. You know, I love giving concerts, and I love rehearsing with other musicians. I'm not used to sitting in a room myself practicing hours and hours and hours. Much though I adore playing the piano and I will practice. But I don't think it's like the life of a solo pianist. I don't know if you agree, Sholto. It's just so different, because I was reading Stephen Huff writing in The Guardian yesterday saying that he just goes, he's the door of his house, he goes to his music studio at 9:30 and he comes out at 6:30.
Yeah.
From 9:30 to 6:30, he's sitting at his piano practicing. And that is something, you know, I've had that sort of practice since I was I don't know if I ever did that sort of practice. So I can't really, all day and playing the piano. So I'm very lucky to be able to play the piano and practice, but I've also got to fill the rest of the time meaningfully and enjoy myself, and not look forward to when it's all over. So I'm kind of trying to think of it as some sort of a forced sabbatical, but one that perhaps will do me a lot of good.
Well, the tarte tatin sounded like a very good start.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think maybe we should wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Sorry not to see you both tomorrow. Keep well, and hopefully see you very soon.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
and
we still have time, but okay.
Sorry?
I thought that we still have time, but it's okay. Don't worry, Sholto. Not because I want to say something.
Sorry.
No.
Please add more if you'd like to. Please add more if you'd like to.
Such an amazing group of people, because
we have
it's just one person, not like this. But I'm so happy that I discovered this Zoom now.
Good.
Yeah.
We'll sign off for now,
yes.
and we can do this off the record again anytime you like.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Absolutely.
Thanks both.
Best wishes to everybody in the Oxford Leader audience.
Thank you very much. Great. See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.